a divine herald in the eternal city. In the sacred heart of Vatican City, where ancient stones whisper tales of apostles, martyrs, and shepherds who shaped the soul of Christendom, the world paused in reverent silence. The sun hung low over Rome on May 6, 2025, casting a golden glow across the cobblestones of St. Peter's Square, where a vibrant tapestry of humanity had gathered. Pilgrims clutched rosaries worn smooth by years of prayer, their beads clicking softly in trembling hands. Families hoisted children onto shoulders, their laughter mingling with the murmurs of anticipation. Travelers from distant lands, Africa's savannas, Asia's rice fields, Latin America's highlands, and Europe's ancient cities stood shoulder to shoulder, their faces alight with hope. A delicate wisp of white smoke curled upward from the Sistine Chapel's chimney, its ethereal tendrils weaving through the crystalline Roman sky. This silent herald, a sacred signal rooted in centuries of tradition, pierced the azure expanse like a divine whisper, stirring hearts and igniting a collective gasp. The crowd, a mosaic of cultures, languages, and dreams, stood transfixed, their anticipation blossoming into awe. Young seminarians whispered prayers in Latin, their voices barely audible. Elderly nuns clasped their hands in quiet joy, their habits swaying in the breeze. Tourists from every continent, their cameras forgotten, felt the weight of the moment settle into their souls, a shared recognition of history unfolding. From the grand balcony of St. Peter's Basilica, adorned with crimson banners and golden filigree, a solitary figure emerged, his presence both humble and commanding. His plain white cassock, unadorned yet radiant, stood in stark contrast to the gilded splendor of the moment, a symbol of simplicity amid grandeur. Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, the beloved Archbishop of Manila, had been chosen as Pope Louis I. The announcement, delivered in resonant Latin by the Cardinal Protodeacon, echoed across the square. Annuncio vobis gaudium magnum, habemus papam. The words unleashed a tidal wave of emotion. Cheers erupted, tears flowed freely, and fervent applause rippled through the crowd, a joyous tide that carried the news to the farthest corners of the globe. Strangers embraced, their differences dissolved in the shared ecstasy of the moment. A young woman from Nigeria wept openly, her hands raised in gratitude. An elderly man from Mexico clutched his rosary, whispering thanks to the Virgin of Guadalupe. For one radiant instant, the world felt smaller, more intimate, as if the boundaries of geography, ideology, and time had melted away in a shared spiritual awakening. The weight of history pressed upon Pope Louis I's shoulders, a mantle woven from the threads of those who had guided the Church through millennia. Peter, the fisherman who built the Church on faith; Augustine, the scholar who wrestled with divine mysteries; Francis, the reformer who embraced poverty and peace. Yet he bore it with serene dignity, his posture steady, his heart open to the divine call. His eyes, warm with humility and lit by a profound compassion, surveyed the sea of faces below. Farmers and scholars, rich and poor, young and old, all bound by a shared hope. A sacred hush enveloped the square, a stillness so profound it seemed the world itself had paused to listen. The only sound, the gentle rustle of banners in the breeze and the distant cooing of pigeons. Then, the triumphant pealing of St. Peter's bells shattered the silence, their joyous notes cascading through Rome's ancient streets, echoing across the 7 hills, and carrying the tidings to distant shores. The bells, forged in centuries past and rung for popes, saints, and moments of eternal consequence, sang of renewal, their vibrations a heartbeat of faith that pulsed through the eternal city and beyond. Tears glistened on weathered cheeks, tracing paths down faces marked by years of toil, devotion, and quiet resilience. Whispers of Viva il Papa rose like a gentle breeze, a universal hymn of faith that transcended language and culture. The words, spoken in Italian, Spanish, Tagalog, Swahili, Mandarin, Arabic, and countless other tongues, wove a tapestry of unity, binding strangers in a shared moment of grace. From the bustling markets of Manila, where vendors paused to cheer amid piles of mangoes and fish, to the quiet villages of the Andes, where farmers knelt in prayer beside alpaca herds, the news of Pope Louis XIV's election spread like wildfire. From the skyscrapers of New York, where office workers watched live streams in awe, to the savannas of Africa, where herders gathered around crackling radios, the tidings carried a promise of hope in a world fractured by division, uncertainty, and strife. In that fleeting moment, humanity stood together, hand in heart, united by the vision of a new chapter in the ancient chronicle of the Catholic Church, a story written in faith, resilience, and love. A son of Asia, a shepherd for humanity. For the first time in centuries, the leader of the Catholic Church hailed from beyond the historic boundaries of Europe, a seismic shift that reshaped the Church's narrative and signaled a bold new era of global inclusivity. Pope Louis I, a proud son of the Philippines, brought to the Vatican the vibrant soul of Asia, a region rich with cultural diversity, deep spirituality, and an unshakable devotion that thrived amid adversity. His election was a luminous testament to the Church's universal reach, a powerful reminder that its mission knows no borders, no limits. Rooted in the colorful traditions of Filipino culture, where faith is woven into the fabric of daily life through vibrant fiestas, communal prayers, and acts of charity, he wove a fresh thread into the Church's global tapestry. His papacy promised to celebrate the diversity of Catholicism, amplifying voices from every continent, Africa's growing congregations, Latin America's fervent parishes, Asia's dynamic communities, Europe's ancient dioceses, and Oceania's scattered faithful, and embracing the richness of their stories, struggles, and dreams. Born in Manila on June 21, 1957, Luis Antonio Tagle grew up in a world where faith and resilience were inseparable. The Philippines, a nation of over 7,000 islands, is a land of contrasts. Lush rainforests and urban sprawls, profound poverty and boundless hope. Here, Catholicism is more than a religion. It is a way of life, a source of strength through typhoons, economic hardship, and political turmoil. As a boy, he walked to Mass with his family through streets alive with the chatter of neighbors, the clang of tricycles, and the scent of jasmine and grilled fish. His mother, Milagros, a schoolteacher, shared food with struggling families, her generosity a quiet lesson in compassion. His father, Manuel, a bank clerk, prayed quietly before dawn, his faith a steady anchor in a turbulent world. These early experiences of community, sacrifice, and trust in God shaped his ministry, infusing his leadership with a deep understanding of the human condition and a fierce commitment to those on the margins. As a young priest in the Diocese of Imus, he served in rural parishes where he learned the rhythms of rural life, planting rice under the monsoon's gaze, celebrating harvests with songs and shared meals, mourning losses from storms that swept away homes. As Archbishop of Manila from 2011 to 2019, he earned the nickname the People's Bishop, known for his habit of riding jeepneys, colorful public buses adorned with religious icons, to visit parishes, his cassock tucked unceremoniously under his arm. He knelt with street children, sharing their laughter and their hunger, his eyes reflecting their dreams. He shared meals with fishermen in Navotas, their calloused hands a testament to their toil, their stories of the sea a lesson in perseverance. He listened to the aspirations of young seminarians, their eyes bright with possibility, and encouraged them to serve with joy. His sermons, delivered with a blend of humor, theological depth, and raw emotion, drew crowds that spilled into church courtyards, their faces alight with hope. Now, as Pope Louis I, he carried this same spirit to the global stage, a shepherd whose heart remained tethered to the barrios and slums of his homeland, a leader whose faith was forged in the crucible of human struggle. Known for his infectious smile and boundless warmth, Pope Louis I radiated a compassion that transcended borders. His ability to forge connections with people, be they farmers tending rice fields in rural Luzon, factory workers in Manila's crowded slums, scholars debating theology in Rome's pontifical universities, or refugees seeking solace in camps across the Middle East made him a cherished figure worldwide. His humility was not performative but deeply authentic, evident in the simplicity of his gestures. A gentle hand on a child's shoulder, a quiet prayer with a grieving mother, a shared laugh with a street vendor over a cup of Tahoe, the sweet tofu dessert of his childhood. Whether delivering a homily to thousands in St. Peter's Square or sharing a fleeting moment with a single soul in a Roman parish, his sincerity shone brightly, endearing him to millions. He was a shepherd who understood the joys and struggles of ordinary lives, a leader whose empathy made him profoundly relatable. His presence felt like a warm embrace, a reminder that faith could be both deeply personal and universally shared, a bridge between the divine mysteries and the everyday realities of human existence. His commitment to social justice was a cornerstone of his ministry, a fire that burned brightly in his heart. A tireless advocate for the marginalized, he amplified the voices of the poor, the forgotten, and the oppressed, bringing their struggles to the forefront of global consciousness. He spoke out against systemic inequality, environmental degradation, and the exploitation of vulnerable communities. Migrant workers toiling in foreign lands, indigenous peoples displaced by mining, families uprooted by conflict or disaster. His words were not mere rhetoric, but a clarion call to action, rooted in his own experiences walking among the poorest of the poor. In the slums of Manila's Tondo district, he had sat with families living in homes made of corrugated metal and tarp, their resilience a testament to the human spirit. He had visited coastal communities in Leyte, devastated by Typhoon Haiyan in 2013, offering not just aid but hope, reminding them of their inherent dignity. He had worked with urban youth, their dreams constrained by poverty, and empowered them through education and faith. This firsthand knowledge informed his vision for the church, one that placed the vulnerable at its heart and sought to build a world where every person was seen, valued, and empowered. In his homeland, the Philippines, his election sparked an outpouring of national pride and unity that swept the archipelago like a tidal wave. The streets of Manila erupted in jubilant celebration, with crowds spilling into plazas like Rizal Park, their songs and prayers weaving a vibrant tapestry of joy. Church bells rang in unison from the historic Basilica of Santo Niño in Cebu, its walls steeped in 500 years of faith, to the humble chapels of Mindanao, where communities gathered under thatched roofs. Families crowded around radios and televisions, their faces alight with pride as they watched their compatriots step onto the global stage. From bustling urban centers like Quezon City, where skyscrapers loomed over crowded markets, to remote mountain villages in the Cordilleras, where farmers paused their work to pray, Filipinos saw in Pope Luis I a reflection of their own aspirations. A leader who understood their unique challenges, from economic hardship to the devastating impact of natural calamities, and who carried their dreams to the highest office in the church. The Philippines, a predominantly Catholic nation with over 80% of its population identifying as Catholic, has long been a stronghold of the faith in Asia. Its churches are not just places of worship, but community hubs, where people gather to pray, celebrate, and support one another through life's trials. The election of Pope Luis I was seen as a divine affirmation of this legacy, a moment that elevated the Filipino spirit and showcased the nation's profound contribution to global Catholicism. In rural barrios where life is shaped by the rhythms of planting and harvest, villagers held processions carrying statues of the Virgin Mary and singing hymns of gratitude like Salve Regina and Pueblo Amante de Maria. In urban centers, students and professionals alike paused to reflect on the significance of the moment, seeing in their new pope a symbol of hope for a nation grappling with poverty, corruption, and inequality. Universities like the University of Santo Tomas, the oldest Catholic university in Asia, hosted symposiums on his life and teachings, while social media buzzed with hashtags like Eos Pope Luis I, Eos Pride of the Philippines, and Faith in Asia. The air was thick with a sense of possibility. a belief that this son of the Philippines could inspire not just his homeland, but the world. Across Asia, the reaction was equally profound. In India, where Catholics form a vibrant minority amid a tapestry of faiths, churches overflowed with worshippers offering thanks for a pope who understood the complexities of a multi-faith society. In Kerala, fishing communities held masses by the Arabian Sea, their nets cast aside in celebration, their prayers rising with the tide. In Vietnam, a country with a growing Catholic population, underground prayer groups gathered quietly, their faith strengthened by his election, a symbol of resilience in a nation where religious freedom is often restricted. In South Korea, where Catholicism is a dynamic force among the young, university students organized forums to discuss his teachings, inspired by his call for compassion and dialogue. In Japan, where Catholics are a small but dedicated minority, parishes held interfaith ceremonies with Shinto and Buddhist leaders, reflecting his commitment to harmony. In Indonesia, the world's largest Muslim-majority nation, Catholic communities celebrated cautiously but joyfully, hopeful that his interfaith legacy would foster peace. Asia, a continent of immense diversity and rapid change, saw in Pope Louis XIV a leader who could navigate its complexities, a shepherd whose roots in the region gave him a unique perspective on its challenges: urbanization, religious pluralism, economic disparity, and its opportunities for spiritual renewal. A global symphony of joy and hope. The news of Pope Louis XIV's election spread like wildfire, igniting celebrations across the globe and uniting the faithful in a symphony of joy. In Latin America, where faith flows like a mighty river through the Andes, the Amazon, and the Pampas, communities filled plazas with music and dance. In Buenos Aires, samba bands joined choirs in vibrant hymns, their rhythms echoing through the streets, while tango dancers paused to join the celebration. In rural Mexico, families lit candles in gratitude, their prayers rising like incense from adobe chapels, their altars adorned with marigolds and images of Our Lady of Guadalupe. In Peru, highland communities wove traditional textiles in his honor, their vibrant colors, red for faith, green for hope, a tribute to his message of renewal. In Colombia, where the Church has mediated peace talks, communities saw in him a leader who could further the cause of reconciliation. The region, home to nearly half of the world's Catholics, saw in Pope Louis XIV a kindred spirit, a leader who understood the struggles of the global South, poverty, inequality, and the legacy of colonialism, and the power of faith to transform lives. In Brazil, where the Amazon's destruction had sparked global concern, environmental activists hailed his commitment to stewardship, hopeful that his papacy would amplify their cause and inspire global action to protect the planet, a common home for all humanity. In Africa, a continent of burgeoning Catholic growth, the mood was equally jubilant. From the vibrant markets of Nairobi, where vendors sang hymns between sales of maize and textiles, to the quiet villages of Uganda, where families gathered under acacia trees, communities offered prayers of thanksgiving for this historic milestone. The Church in Africa, growing faster than anywhere else, saw in the new Pope a champion of its vibrant, youthful faith, a leader who could guide its expansion with wisdom and compassion. In Nigeria, where Catholics navigate a complex landscape of religious diversity, community leaders organized interfaith gatherings inspired by his legacy of dialogue. In South Africa, parishes held all-night vigils, their songs of praise echoing through townships and cities alike, from Soweto to Cape Town. In Ethiopia, one of the oldest Christian nations, Orthodox and Catholic communities joined in celebration, seeing in his election a call to ecumenical unity, their ancient churches resounding with Coptic chants and Latin hymns. In Ghana, where Catholicism thrives alongside traditional religions, communities held festivals blending Christian and Akan rituals, their joy a testament to the universality of his message. The continent, with its rich traditions and resilient spirit, embraced Pope Louis XIV as a brother, a shepherd who understood the challenges of poverty, conflict, and rapid urbanization, and who brought a message of hope to its people. In Europe, the traditional heartland of Catholicism, a cautious optimism took root. The continent, grappling with secularism, declining church attendance, and the scars of historical divisions found in Pope Louis I a source of renewal. Many saw in him a continuation of Pope Francis's reformist legacy, with his emphasis on mercy, dialogue, and inclusivity resonating deeply with those yearning for a more compassionate church. In Paris, theologians at the Sorbonne debated the implications of his election, hopeful that his global perspective could reinvigorate European Catholicism. In Berlin, youth groups organized service projects inspired by his call to serve the marginalized, their efforts focused on refugees and the homeless. In Ireland, a nation wrestling with the Church's complex history, parishes held masses of thanksgiving, seeing in the new pope a chance to heal old wounds and rebuild trust. In Poland, where Catholicism remains a cultural cornerstone, pilgrims flock to shrines like Częstochowa, their prayers for the new pope mingling with those for their nation's future. In Spain, where the Camino de Santiago draws pilgrims from around the world, walkers added intentions for Pope Louis I to their journey, their steps a prayer for unity. Across the continent, from the fjords of Norway to the vineyards of Tuscany, the faithful began to dream of a church that could bridge the gap between tradition and modernity, faith and reason, uniting Europe's diverse societies in a shared vision of hope. In Oceania, island communities from Fiji to Papua New Guinea joined the global celebration, their ceremonies infused with the rhythms of their unique cultures, drum beats, chants, and dances that honored both their faith and their heritage. In Australia, where Catholicism has shaped much of the nation's history, parishes organized community festivals, their joy tempered by a commitment to address the Church's past failings, particularly toward Indigenous peoples. Aboriginal Catholics held ceremonies blending Christian and traditional spirituality, their Dreamtime stories interwoven with the gospel, seeing in Pope Louis I a leader who valued cultural diversity and inclusion. In New Zealand, Maori Catholics wove traditional prayers into their celebrations, their karakia rising alongside Latin hymns, their hongi greetings a symbol of unity. In the Solomon Islands, where Catholicism thrives in remote villages, communities held masses under palm trees, their voices carried by the Pacific breeze. The region, often overlooked in global narratives, found in the new pope a voice that amplified its presence, a shepherd who understood the challenges of small, scattered communities and the power of faith to unite them. In North America, the reaction was diverse and vibrant. In the United States, where Catholicism is a tapestry of immigrant traditions, parishes from New York to Los Angeles held special masses, their congregations reflecting the nation's diversity. Hispanic, Irish, African American, and Asian Catholics united in celebration. In Chicago, Filipino American communities organized cultural festivals. Their dances like the Tinikling and songs like Dahil Sa'yo a tribute to their homeland's new pope. In Texas, border communities prayed for his guidance on migration, inspired by his call for compassion toward refugees. In Canada, Quebec's historic churches, once the heart of French Catholicism, buzzed with renewed energy, while Indigenous Catholic communities in the prairies saw in Pope Louis I a leader who could address their calls for reconciliation, their ceremonies blending Christian and Cree traditions. The region, marked by both secularism and fervent faith, embraced his message of compassion, seeing in him a guide for navigating the challenges of pluralism and polarization in a rapidly changing world. From the Americas to Asia, from Europe to the farthest reaches of the globe, a shared sense of hope pulsed through the Catholic world. The election of Pope Louis I there felt like a refreshing breeze, a renewal for a church navigating the complexities of the 21st century. Climate change, political polarization, economic inequality, technological disruption, and the challenges of modernity. It was a moment that dissolved borders, reminding the faithful of their place in a vast, interconnected spiritual family. His leadership promised to address these challenges with a fresh perspective, fostering a church that was more engaged, inclusive, and attuned to the needs of its diverse flock. In parishes and cathedrals, discussions buzzed with excitement as communities envisioned a faith renewed, vibrant, and responsive to the modern world. From small prayer groups in rural chapels to grand assemblies in urban basilicas, the faithful began to dream of a church that could bridge divides, heal wounds, and inspire a new generation of believers. A bridge across cultures and faiths. Scholars and commentators across the globe weighed in on the election's significance, their analyses as varied as the cultures they represented. Many viewed Pope Louis I as a bridge builder, a leader uniquely equipped to foster understanding between East and West, across faiths and traditions. His Asian heritage, rooted in the Philippines' syncretic blend of indigenous, Spanish, and global influences, gave him a unique perspective on cultural harmony. His extensive experience in interfaith dialogue, having worked with Muslim, Buddhist, and indigenous communities in the Philippines, positioned him as a singular figure in the global religious landscape. In Mindanao, a region marked by religious tensions, he had facilitated dialogues between Christians and Muslims, fostering mutual respect and collaboration, often over shared meals of rice and fish. He had visited Buddhist temples in Manila's Chinatown, sharing tea with monks and discussing shared values of compassion and peace. He had worked with indigenous Ida communities in Pampanga, advocating for their rights and learning from their spiritual connection to the land. Their rituals a reminder of humanity's bond with creation. His approach was not one of dominance, but of listening, a commitment to finding common ground in a world often fractured by division. His election was seen as a step toward greater interreligious understanding, a chance to build bridges in an era of conflict and misunderstanding. His deep understanding of the developing world's challenges added another layer to his appeal. In the Philippines, he had witnessed the impact of poverty, urbanization, and climate change firsthand. He had walked through slums like Tondo, where families lived in homes made of corrugated metal and tarp, their resilience a testament to the human spirit. He had visited coastal communities in Leyte, devastated by Typhoon Haiyan in 2013, offering not just aid but hope, reminding them of their inherent dignity through masses held amid the rubble. He had worked with indigenous communities in Mindanao, displaced by mining and deforestation, advocating for their rights and amplifying their voices in national forums. This first-hand knowledge informed his advocacy for social justice as he championed the cause of the marginalized, migrant workers toiling in the Middle East, indigenous peoples fighting for their land, families uprooted by conflict or disaster. His vision for the church was one that prioritized the vulnerable, seeking to address systemic inequalities and promote sustainable development. His commitment to environmental stewardship, inspired by the Philippines' vulnerability to climate change, resonated with a global audience increasingly aware of the planet's fragility. He spoke of the Earth as our common home, echoing Pope Francis's Laudato Si and calling for a global ethic of care, urging nations to act swiftly to protect ecosystems and support communities most affected by environmental crises. His pastoral experience was equally compelling. A true shepherd, he engaged deeply with his flock, always attentive to their needs and aspirations. His years in the slums of Manila, where he shared in the lives of the poorest of the poor, left an indelible mark on his leadership. He didn't merely provide aid, he immersed himself in their stories, listening to their hopes and fears, and offering not just material support, but spiritual solace. He celebrated their joys, weddings, baptisms, and community festivals like the Feast of the Black Nazarene, where millions walked barefoot in devotion and mourned their losses, from the death of a loved one to the destruction of a home by flood or fire. He had a gift for making each person feel seen, whether a child shyly offering a drawing or an elder recounting a lifetime of struggles. This profound empathy shaped his ministry, making him a vocal advocate for social justice. He spoke out against corruption, exploitation, and indifference, urging the church and the world to uplift those who were most in need. His leadership style, rooted in compassion and collaboration, was expected to bring a fresh perspective to the Vatican's decision-making, prioritizing the needs of the most vulnerable and fostering a church that walked alongside its people, not above them. The election of Pope Louis also highlighted Asia's growing influence in the global church. A region experiencing a surge in religious devotion, Asia was becoming a vital center of Catholic life. Countries like India, Vietnam, and South Korea were seeing rapid growth in their Catholic populations, fueled by a youthful, dynamic faith. The Philippines, with its deep Catholic roots, was a cornerstone of this resurgence, a beacon of devotion in a region where Christianity is often a minority faith. With his deep understanding of Asian spirituality, its emphasis on community, resilience, and harmony, Pope Louis I was uniquely positioned to engage this vibrant community of believers. His papacy held the promise of a new era of dialogue, fostering greater harmony between diverse cultures and faiths in an increasingly interconnected world. His ability to speak to both the heart and the mind, to blend theological depth with human warmth, made him a beacon of hope for a world yearning for unity. A church united in purpose and vision. Within the Vatican, the election of Pope Louis I sparked a renewed sense of purpose that reverberated through the Apostolic Palace. Cardinals, bishops, priests, and nuns gathered in solemn prayer, their voices resonating through the hallowed halls adorned with frescoes by Michelangelo and tapestries woven in medieval looms. Clad in their ceremonial vestments, scarlet for cardinals, purple for bishops, black habits for nuns, they spoke of his wisdom, his humility, and his unshakable faith. Stories of his past deeds circulated, tales of his simple lifestyle, his habit of riding public buses in Manila to visit parishes, and his ability to inspire those around him with a single glance or word. His speeches, filled with calls for compassion, justice, and action, struck a chord, reinforcing the Church's mission to serve the least among us. Among the clergy, there was a palpable excitement, a sense that his leadership would reinvigorate the Church's mission in a fractured world. Bishops vowed to support his vision, drafting pastoral letters to share his message with their dioceses. Priests planned to incorporate his teachings into their homilies, emphasizing his call to serve the poor. Nuns, many of whom had worked in similar conditions in Asia and beyond, spoke of his compassion as a model for their own service, a reminder of their vow to live for others. Lay Catholics, too, were swept up in a wave of optimism that rippled through communities worldwide. From small parish gatherings in rural hamlets to sprawling urban cathedrals, the faithful came together to celebrate their new leader. They saw in Pope Louis I a pope who understood their daily struggles, whether financial hardship, family challenges, or the search for meaning in a chaotic world. His message of unity and reconciliation resonated deeply, inspiring Catholics to work toward a more inclusive and compassionate church. In parishes across the globe, parishioners began brainstorming ways to bring his vision to life locally. In Brazil, communities planned outreach programs for street children, inspired by his advocacy for the poor. In Nigeria, youth groups organized interfaith dialogues, reflecting his commitment to harmony. In the Philippines, families launched initiatives to support typhoon victims, channeling his call for solidarity. In the United States, parishes organized forums on racial justice, inspired by his emphasis on equality and dignity. In India, women's groups planned literacy programs, drawing on his call for empowerment. In Kenya, farmers' cooperatives formed to promote sustainable agriculture, inspired by his environmental teachings. The air was thick with excitement, a collective sense that something extraordinary was on the horizon. A church renewed, vibrant, and deeply connected to its people. In schools and universities, students studied his writings, drawn to his blend of theological insight and practical wisdom. At Ateneo de Manila, where he had once taught, professors held symposiums on his legacy, analyzing his contributions to theology and social justice. In Rome's Gregorian University, seminarians pored over his homilies, inspired by his ability to make complex doctrines accessible and relevant. In Nairobi's Catholic University of Eastern Africa, students debated his vision for a global church, their discussions fueled by his emphasis on inclusion. In Mexico City's Universidad Iberoamericana, young activists explored his teachings on justice, their projects aimed at addressing urban poverty. In homes, families gathered to pray for his guidance, lighting candles and offering novenas for his strength and wisdom. His interactions with the faithful were marked by genuine empathy, whether he was blessing a child in a crowded square or listening to the concerns of a farmer in a rural parish. His words brought comfort and purpose, a reminder that faith was not a distant ideal but a living force, capable of transforming lives and communities. His call for unity was a clarion call, transcending borders and bringing people together in a spirit of togetherness and mutual respect. Catholics looked forward to a church that was more inclusive, more welcoming, and more attuned to the needs of its diverse congregation, a vision that promised to unite the faithful in a shared mission of love and service. Theological reflections on his election abounded, with scholars noting the parallels between his ministry and the teachings of Jesus, who walked among the poor and challenged the powerful. His emphasis on mercy echoed the parable of the Good Samaritan, who cared for a stranger without hesitation. His commitment to justice recalled the prophets of old, like Isaiah, who spoke truth to power. His Asian perspective brought fresh insights to Catholic theology, blending the communal values of the East with the Church's universal mission. He spoke of faith as a dance of encounter, a dynamic interplay of cultures, traditions, and experiences that enrich the body of Christ. His writings, filled with references to Filipino proverbs like "Ang hindi lumingon sa pinanggalingan ay hindi makararating sa paroroonan," "He who does not look back to his roots will not reach his destination," and Asian spirituality offered a new lens through which to understand the gospel, one that resonated with a global church increasingly diverse and interconnected. He drew on the concept of kapwa, a Filipino value of shared identity and mutual care, to articulate a theology of community, urging the faithful to see themselves as interconnected, bound by a common humanity. A path illuminated by compassion and courage. In times of challenge, the faithful find strength in unity, walking hand in hand toward a brighter future. Pope Louis I's leadership embodied this spirit, illuminating a path of hope and resilience. His legacy, built on acts of courage and compassion, promised to enrich the Church's storied history. Each story of sacrifice, whether a priest's quiet service in a war-torn region, a nun's dedication to orphans, a layperson's commitment to feeding the hungry, or a volunteer's work in a refugee camp, added to the vibrant mosaic of Catholic faith. Each moment of triumph, from a community rebuilding after a disaster to a family finding solace in prayer, reflected the enduring power of humanity's shared spirit. His call to action was clear: to love without boundaries, to serve without hesitation, and to build a world where every person is seen, valued, and empowered. He urged the faithful to be light in the darkness, to carry hope into the world's most broken places, and to live their faith with boldness and joy. He drew inspiration from the saints, particularly those of Asia, like Lorenzo Ruiz, the first Filipino saint, who faced martyrdom with unwavering faith in 17th century Japan. He spoke of Mother Teresa, whose work in India's slums mirrored his own commitment to the poor, her life a testament to the power of small acts of love. He invoked the example of Francis Xavier, whose missionary zeal brought Christianity to Asia, as a model for the Church's global mission. He also looked to lesser-known figures like Pedro Calungsod, a young Filipino catechist martyred in Guam, whose courage inspired youth ministry. These figures, he argued, were not distant icons, but living reminders of the call to serve, to sacrifice, and to love. His homilies, delivered in a voice that blended warmth and conviction, challenged the faithful to live their faith in the world, to be agents of change in their communities, and to embody the gospel in their daily lives. He spoke of the Beatitudes as a roadmap for his papacy, a call to be peacemakers, to hunger for justice, and to show mercy in a world often marked by cruelty. His vision extended beyond the Church to the broader human family. He called for dialogue with other faiths, advocating for peace in regions torn by conflict, from the Middle East to Central Africa. He urged governments to prioritize the poor in their policies, drawing on Catholic social teaching to argue for a preferential option for the poor. He spoke of migration as a human right, calling for compassion toward refugees and asylum seekers, his words resonating with those fleeing war in Syria or economic collapse in Venezuela. He addressed the digital age, urging the faithful to use technology for good, to combat misinformation, and to foster connection rather than division. His words resonated with activists, policymakers, and ordinary people alike, sparking conversations about the role of faith in public life. His encyclicals, still in draft form, were rumored to address climate change, economic justice, interfaith dialogue, and the ethics of artificial intelligence, signaling a papacy that would engage the world's most pressing issues with boldness and clarity. The dawn of a new era. As the sun rises over the eternal city, casting golden light across the Tiber and illuminating the domes of St. Peter's, a new era dawns for the Catholic Church. This is a time of renewal, of bold beginnings and boundless possibilities. With every sunrise, the faithful are reminded of their potential to create a more inclusive, compassionate world. Across continents and cultures, a global faith awakens, uniting people in a common purpose and vision. Pope Louis I's papacy stands as a testament to the enduring strength of belief, a beacon of light guiding the world toward unity and understanding. His leadership promises not just a new chapter for the Church, but a renewed commitment to a world where hope, justice, and love prevail. From the rice paddies of Asia to the savannas of Africa, from the mountains of Latin America to the cities of Europe, the faithful stand together, hand in heart, ready to walk this path. They carry with them the lessons of their new Pope, that faith is a call to action, that love is a force for change, and that unity is the foundation of a better world. As the bells of St. Peter's continue to ring, their echoes reach every corner of the globe, a reminder that this is not just a moment but a movement of hope, compassion, and courage that will shape the Church and the world for generations to come. In the words of Pope Louis I, spoken in his first address from the balcony, "Let us walk together as one family toward the light of Christ, carrying hope to every heart and healing to every wound." His voice, carried by the wind, seemed to reach not just the crowd below, but the very heavens, a prayer and a promise for a world renewed, a world where every soul finds a place in the embrace of faith.